Hello， 大家好，这里是 Sally Coin， 我是 Vanessa。那前几天呢，股神巴菲特他掌舵的伯克希尔哈撒韦公司举办了1年1度的股东大会。那这一次呢，巴菲特身边不再是他相伴60年的金牌搭档查理芒格，年轻的 CEO 接班人伯克希尔的非业务保险部门主管阿贝尔坐在了94岁高龄的巴菲特身边。那这场长达4个小时的问答会，不仅是巴菲特职业生涯盛大的告别秀，更像是一场新旧权力的交接仪式。伯克希尔哈撒韦这家享誉世界的顶级投资公司将告别巴菲特时代，正式踏上新征程。那这场问答会呢，一共提了33个问题，但说实话，这场讲座中对于我来讲，真正有价值的可能只有2个问题，也是所有投资者普遍关心的。那第一个呢，是伯克希尔哈撒韦现在为什么会选择持有巨额的现金，后续有什么计划？第二个是巴菲特会如何应对美元走弱和货币贬值的风险问题。那整场演讲的过程中呢，你能够感受到巴菲特说话的吃力感，特别是长句中间还要停顿休息几次才能够说完。所以呢，面对这样一位神一般的人物，所有人只有屏住呼吸，安静地听完他的每一个字。
Now, the amount of cash we have is we would spend we came pretty close to spending $10 billion not that long ago, for example, but we'd spend $100 billion. I mean, and those decisions are not tough to make. When something is offered that makes sense to us and that we understand and offers good value and where we don't worry about losing. And the one problem with the investment business is that things don't come along in an orderly fashion, and they never will. I mean, it isn't like every day. The long-term record is sensational. It would be nice if every day you got 4 opportunities or something like that, and and they were expected to be equally attractive. If I was running a numbers racket, every day would have the same expectancy of that I would keep 40% of whatever the handle was, and so the only question would be is how much we transacted. But we're not running that kind of a business, and so we're running a business which is very, very, very opportunistic. And Charlie always thought I did too many things. He thought if we did about 5 things in our lifetime, we'd end up doing better than if we did 50, and that we never concentrated enough. So that we would rather have, if we've got $335 billion now in treasuries, we would rather have conditions that have developed where we would have like $50 billion or something like that. But that just isn't the way the business works. And we have made a lot of money by not wanting to be fully invested at all times. And we don't think it's improper, actually. But if you told me that I had to invest, let's say that we have a roughly $40 billion a year coming in, and we start with 335. If you told me I had to invest $50 billion every year till we got down to $50 billion, that would be the dumbest thing in the world to invest in that manner. Things get extraordinarily attractive very occasionally. The long-term trend is up. Nobody knows. And I certainly don't know. Greg doesn't know. Ajit doesn't know. Nobody knows what the market is going to do tomorrow, next week, next month. And nobody knows what business is going to do tomorrow, next week, or next month. But they spend all their time talking about it because it's easy to talk about. And but it has no value. I never found anybody I wanted to listen to on the subject. And on the other hand, I found that leafing through things like that big Japanese book that I can't read anymore, that's a treasure hunt. And every now and then you find something, and occasionally, very occasionally, but it'll happen again. I don't know when. It could be next week. It could be 5 years off, but it won't be 50 years off. We will be bombarded with offerings that we'll be glad we have the cash for. And it'd be a lot more fun if it would happen tomorrow, but it's very unlikely to happen tomorrow. Very, very unlikely to happen tomorrow. But it's not unlikely to happen in 5 years. And then the probabilities get higher as you go along. It's kind of like death. I mean, if you're 10 years old, the chances that you're going to die the next day are low. You get to be 115 or something like that. It's almost a cinch.
那这个问题呢，巴菲特回答的比较隐晦，并没有直接说明为什么当下减持大量的股票，保有创纪录的3000亿美元现金。那明眼人都知道，肯定是为了应对未来市场的不确定性。这种不确定性可能是来源于美国政府、地缘政治冲突。不过，关于未来如何把这笔钱投资出去，我认为对于每一个投资者来讲都会很有启发。那巴菲特也说了，做好5笔交易比做50笔更有可能获得成功。没有人知道机会会在明天出现，还是在5年后出现，但是只要你有足够的耐心，你就会等到它。在交易中也是一样。
We've done that, and we've owned lots of securities of in foreign currency. So we do nothing in terms of the question about its impact on quarterly and annual earnings. And obviously we wouldn't want to be owning anything that we thought was in a currency that was really going to hell. And that's the big thing we worry about with the United States currency. I mean, the tendency of a government to want to debase its currency over time there's no system that beats that. You can pick dictators, you can pick representatives, you can do anything. But the people, there will be a push toward weaker currencies. And of course, that is, I mentioned very briefly in the annual report that the fiscal policy is what scares me in the United States, because it's made the way it is. And all the motivations are doing a lot of things that can cause trouble with money. But that's not limited to the United States. It's all over the world. And some places it gets out of control regularly. They devalue at rates that are breathtaking, and that's continued. I mean, people can study economics and you can have all kinds of arrangements, but in the end, if you've got people that control the currency, you can issue paper money, and you will, or you can engage in clipping currencies like they used to do centuries ago. There will always be people. It's the nature of their job. I'm not singling them out as particularly evil or anything like that, but the natural course of government is to make the currency worth less over time. And if you look up and search the great inflations of post-World War II, it's just a list that goes on forever, and the same names keep popping up and everything. So the value of currency is a scary thing. And we don't have any great system for beating that. We do in this particular Japanese position, because we expect to hold it for 50 or 100 years or more. And we will be owning something that's denominated in yen and easily predictable, and we'll just, as long as the carry on it is right and everything, we'll attempt to issue Japanese denominated liabilities. But that's not because of anything we care about in terms of quarterly or annual earnings.
关于第二个问题啊，从这段回答中，我们不难看出，巴菲特对待美元贬值的态度，其实他是完全不 care 的。他说了，全球的政府的目标都是一致的，就是让本国的货币贬值。不仅是美国，全球都是这样，财政风险是不可避免的。历史上不同的时期都出现过通货膨胀，所以说他不是出于要让公司财报更加好看的目的去投资日元资产 ，maybe 只是当下一个很好的 deal。如果你想要真正了解巴菲特跨越周期的投资智慧，想要从他的身上学习到投资成功的关键秘诀，那么我强烈推荐你去听一听巴菲特27年前给佛罗里达大学 MBA 毕业生的一场神级演讲。那时的巴菲特已经60岁了，正处于职业生涯的黄金时期。这场演讲呢，涵盖了巴菲特的投资智慧与哲学，今天的投资者依然受用。我把这场1个半小时的演讲呢，整理成了最精髓的3个问题。如果你正处于迷茫期，我相信听到最后，对你的投资思维会非常有启发。我简单跟大家讲一讲是3个什么样的问题。第一个，什么是好的交易？为什么巴菲特能够在早期发掘可口可乐？对吧？从1988年以2.45美元一股的价格购买，到现在可口可乐的股价已经涨超了30倍，成为了巴菲特最经典的成功案例。所以说呢，你会看到每一次股东大会有2瓶可口可乐都会放在巴菲特的左前方啊，成为了那么标志性的一抹红。那在这个案例中呢，你会深刻的了解巴菲特著名的投资护城河理论。那第二个问题啊，什么是确定性的投资？为什么巴菲特可以不关心宏观市场？我从这2次演讲中也发现了一个非常有趣的现象，几乎每次演讲大家的问题更集中在短期的当下的一些政治市场的波动。而巴菲特数十年如一日坚持他的长期主义，他只会去考虑这个生意本身10年后、20年后是否还存在，非常少的去关心当下的一些市场的变动。那他的回答呢，也让我明白，作为一个加密货币领域的投资者，无论加密币市场再多新的概念和叙事，比特币永远都是最好的投资。如果你也投资加密货币的话，我也希望你从这一段发言中得到启发。那第3个问题，为什么投资是不需要预测市场的？ 的。这点是不是有点颠覆你的认识？因为人都以为能够准确判断市场好坏才能够做出好的投资，但实际上巴菲特从来并不是靠预测市场赚钱的。那他的逻辑是什么呢？你是不是感到非常的好奇？那接下来呢，我们一起来听一听巴菲特的投资哲学。
Yeah.
Talk to the students about the companies that you like. I don't mean names. I mean what makes the company something that you like.
I like businesses I can understand. We'll start with that. That narrows it down about 90%. And, I mean, there's all kinds of things I don't understand, but fortunately, there's enough I do understand. And you got this big, wide world out there. Almost every company's publicly owned. So you got all American business practically available to you. Now, to start with, it doesn't make sense to go with things that you think you can understand, but you can understand some things. I can understand this. I mean, you can understand this. Anybody can understand this. I mean, this is a product that basically hasn't been changed much. They've added the cherry, but since 1886 or whatever it was, and it's a simple business. It's not an easy business. I don't want a business that's easy for competitors. So I want a business with a moat around it. I want a very valuable castle in the middle, and then I want the duke who's in charge of that castle to be honest and hardworking and able. And then I want a big moat around the castle. And that moat can be various things. The moat in a business like our auto insurance business at GEICO is low cost. I mean, people have to buy auto insurance. So everybody's going to have one auto insurance policy per car, basically, or per driver. And I can't sell them 20, but they have to buy one. What are they going to buy it on? They're going to buy it based on service and cost. Most people will assume the service is fairly identical among companies or close enough. So they're going to do it on cost. So I got to be the low-cost producer. That's my moat. To the extent my costs get further lower than the other guy, I've thrown a couple of sharks into the moat. But all the time, if you've got a wonderful castle, there are people out there who are going to try and attack it and take it away from you. And I want a castle that I can understand, but I want a castle with a moat around it. 30 years ago, Eastman Kodak's moat was just as wide as Coca-Cola's moat. I mean, if you were going to take a picture of your 6-month-old baby, and you're going to want to look at that picture 20 years from now, and you're going to look at it 50 years from now, and you're never going to get a chance. I mean, you're not a professional photographer so that you can evaluate what's going to look good 20 or 50 years ago. What is in your mind about that photography company is what counts, because they are promising you that the picture you take today is going to be terrific to look at 20 or 30 or 50 years from now about something that's very important to you, maybe your own child or whatever it may be. Well, Kodak had that in spades 30 years ago. They owned that. They had what I call share of mind. Forget about share of market, share of mind. They had something in everybody's mind around the country, around the world, with a little yellow box and everything, that said Kodak is the best. That's priceless. They've lost some of that. They haven't lost it all, and not due to George Fisher, who runs it. George is doing a great job. But they let that moat narrow. They let Fuji come and start narrowing the moat in various ways. They let them get into the Olympics and take away that special aspect that only Kodak was fit to photograph the Olympics. So Fuji gets there, and immediately in people's minds, Fuji becomes more and a parity with Kodak. You haven't seen that with Coke. Coke's moat is wider now than it was 30 years ago. You can't see the moat day by day, but every time the infrastructure gets built in some country that isn't yet profitable for Coke, but will be 20 years from now, the moat is widening a little bit. Things are all the time changing that moat in one direction or another. 10 years from now, you can see the difference. Our managers of the businesses we run, I've got one message to them, which is to widen the moat. And we want to throw crocodiles and sharks and everything else, gators, I guess, into the moat to keep away competitors. And that comes about through service. It comes about through quality of product. It comes about through cost. It comes about sometimes through patents. It comes about through real estate location. So that's the business I'm looking for. Now,
那第三个问题呢，其实巴菲特运用到了他一个非常重要的投资理念，就是护城河。护城河其实就是不可替代性，并且你会发现，巴菲特早期投资的很多他所谓看得懂的生意，其实无非就是衣食住行。比如吉列剃须刀，他说过一句很经典的话：不要找因为促销而受欢迎的产品，而要找到那些真正受到人们喜爱的产品。他说只要想到每天晚上男人的胡须在生长，他就不用担心吉列的股价会下跌。
The question about what's going to happen to interest rates or where we go in the world, I don't think about the macro stuff. I just, what you really want to do in investments
is figure out what's important and knowable. If it's unimportant or unknowable, you forget about it. What you talk about is important, but in my view, it's not knowable. Understanding Coca-Cola is knowable, or Wrigley, or Eastman Kodak, or anything. I mean, you can understand those businesses. That's knowable. And whether it turns out to be important depends on where your valuation leads you and the current price and all of that. But we have never either bought a business or not bought a business because of any macro feeling of any kind. We don't read things about predictions about interest rates or business or anything like that because it doesn't make any difference. I mean, let's say in 1972 when we bought See's Candy, I think maybe Nixon put on the price controls a little bit later. Let's say we'd seen that. But so what? We'd have missed a chance to buy something for $25 million that's earning $60 million pre-tax now. I mean, we don't want to pass up the chance to do something intelligent because of some prediction about something that we're no good at anyway. So we just don't read or listen to or do anything in relation to.
Coca-Cola just announced a drop in expectations in terms of future earnings and fourth quarter earnings. And in light of the fact that Coke has a lot of their profits coming in from outside the United States, how do you think the Asian crisis, so to speak, is going to affect Coke, or for that matter, the U.S. economy in general?
The question is about the Asian crisis and how it affects a company like Coke that recently announced that the earnings, actually they just announced their third quarter earnings, but a few weeks ago they tipped people off that they were going to be lower in the fourth quarter and so on. Well, basically I love it, but because the market for Coca-Cola products is going to grow far faster over the next 20 years internationally than it will in the United States. It'll grow in the United States on a per capita basis. It's going to grow faster elsewhere. So the fact that it's going to be a tough period for, who knows, 3 months or 3 years, but it won't be tough for 20 years. I mean, people are still going to, they're going to work productively around the world, and they're going to find that this is a bargain product in terms of the portion of their working day that they have to give up in order to have one of these, or better yet, 5 of them a day, like I do. It's this is a product. In 1936, when I first bought 6 of those for a quarter and sold them for a nickel each, and it was in a 6.5-ounce bottle, and you paid a 2-cent deposit on the bottle. That was a 6.5-ounce bottle for a nickel at that time. It's now a 12-ounce can, which if you buy it on weekends, or if you buy it in bigger quantities, so much money doesn't go to the packaging, I mean, you essentially can buy the 12 ounces for not much more than 20 cents. So you're paying not much more than twice the per ounce price of 1936. It is a product that's gotten cheaper and cheaper and cheaper in relative to people's earning power over the years, and which people love. In 200 countries, you have the per capita use going up every year for a product that's over 100 years old, and that dominates the market. I mean, it's unbelievable. One thing that people don't understand is one thing that makes this product is worth tens and tens of billions of dollars. Is one simple fact about really all colas, but we'll call it Coca-Cola for the moment. It happens to be a name I like. Cola has no taste memory. You can drink one of these at 9 o'clock, 11 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, 5 o'clock. The one at 5 o'clock will taste just as good to you as the one you drank early in the morning. You can't do that with cream soda, root beer, orange, grape, you name it. All of those things accumulate on you. Most foods and beverages accumulate on you. You get sick of them after a while. And if you eat, I mean, we get these people who go to work for us at See's Candy, and we tell them they eat all the candy they want. And the first day they go crazy. But after a week, they're eating about the same amount they'd eat if they were buying it, because chocolate accumulates on, everything accumulates on. There is no taste memory to cola. And that means that you get people around the world that are heavy users that'll drink 5 a day, or Diet Coke, maybe 7 or 8 a day, or something of the sort. They'll never do that with other products. So you get this incredible per capita consumption. The average person in this part of the world, well, maybe a little north of here, drinks about 64 ounces of liquid a day. And you can have all 64 ounces of that be Coke, and you will not get fed up with Coke if you like it to start with, in the least. But if you do that with almost anything else, if you eat just one product all day, you'll get a little sick of it after a while. And it's a huge factor. So that today, over 1 billion 8-ounce servings of Coca-Cola products will be sold in the world. And that will grow year by year. It'll grow in every country, virtually. And it'll grow on a per capita basis. And 20 years from now, it'll have grown a lot faster internationally than in the U.S. So I really like that market better because there is more growth there over time. But it will hurt them it is hurting them in the short term right now. But that doesn't mean anything. I mean, Coca-Cola went public in, I think it was 1919. Stock sold for $40 a share. It went back before that as the Candler family, and they went back. They bought it for $2,000, the whole business. A's the Candler back in the late 1880s in a couple of purchases. So now he goes public in 1919, $40 a share. 1 year later, it's selling for $19, gone down 50% in 1 year. Now you might think that's some kind of disaster, and you might think that sugar prices increased and the bottlers were rebellious and a whole bunch of things. You could always find a few reasons why that wasn't the ideal moment to buy it. Years later, you'd have seen the Great Depression, and you'd have seen World War II, and you'd seen sugar rationing, and you'd seen thermonuclear weapons, and the whole thing. There's always a reason. But in the end, if you'd bought one share for $40 and reinvested the dividends, it'd be worth about $5 million now. And that factor so overrides anything else. I mean, if you're right about the business, you'll make a lot of money. And the timing part of it is a very tricky thing. So I don't worry about any given event if I've got a wonderful business, what it does to next year or something of the sort. Their price controls have been in this country at various times, and that's fouled up even the best of businesses. I mean, I wouldn't be able to raise the price on December 26th of See's Candy if we had price controls, and we've had them in this country. But that doesn't make it a lousy business if that happens to happen, because you're not going to have price controls forever. We had them in the early 70s. So the wonderful business, you can figure out what will happen. You can't figure out when it will happen. You don't want to focus too much on when. You want to focus on what. If you're right about what, you don't have to worry about when very much.
关于这个问题的答案，巴菲特非常的清晰，因为他的投资从来不考虑宏观因素的暂时影响。对于一门好生意，一定是具备跨越周期的能力。所以呢，对于我们投资加密货币这个日新月异的市场，追求热点可以让我们获得丰厚的回报，但是不要忘了，比特币永远是确定的、独一无二、可以跨越周期的好地儿。
Well, I've got no idea where the market's going to go. I prefer it going down, but I haven't. My preferences have nothing to do with it. The market knows nothing about my feelings. That's one of the first things you have to learn with a stock. You buy 100 shares of General Motors. Now all of a sudden you have this feeling about General Motors. I mean, if it goes down, you may be mad at it. You may say, well, if it just go up to what I paid for it, my life will be wonderful again. Or if it goes up, you may say how smart you were and how you and General Motors have this love affair and everything. You've got all these feelings. Stock doesn't know you own it. Stock just sits there. It doesn't care what you paid. It doesn't care that you owned it or anything. So any feeling I have about the market is not reciprocated. I mean, it is the ultimate. It is very cold shoulder we're talking about here. And anybody that is going to be a net saver, practically everybody in this room is more likely to be a net buyer of stocks over the next 10 years than they are a net seller. So every one of you should prefer lower prices. I mean, if you're going to be a net eater of hamburger in the next 10 years, you want hamburger to go down unless you're a cattle producer. And if you're going to be a buyer of Coca-Cola and you don't own Coke stock, you hope the price of Coke goes down. I mean, you're looking for it to be on sale this weekend at your supermarket. You want it to be down on the weekends, not up on the weekends when you're going to attend the supermarket. Your stock exchange is a big supermarket of companies, and you're going to be buying stocks. What do you want to have happen? You want those stocks to go down, way down. And, you will make better buys then. And later on, 20 years from now, 30 years from now, when you're in a period when you're dis-saving or when your heirs dis-save for you after you're gone, I mean, then you may care about higher prices. But I find people, that was one of the, there's a chapter 8 in Ben Graham's Intelligent Investor about the attitude towards stock market fluctuations. And that and the chapter 20 on the margin of safety are the two most important essays ever written on investing as far as I'm concerned. Because when I read chapter 8, when I was 19, I figured, I just figured out what I just said, but it's obvious. I didn't figure it out myself, though. It was explained to me. I'd probably gone another 100 years if I had read and still thought it was good when my stocks were going up. No, we want things to go down, but I have no idea what the stock market's going to do. I never do. I never will. It's not something that I think about at all. When it goes down, I look harder at what I might buy that day. Because I know there's more likely to be some merchandise there that that I can use my money effectively in.
那最后一个问题呢，这个回答也非常的经典啊。如果你把纽交所看成是一个大的商场，那么当你想要购物时，肯定是希望商品越便宜越好。我们做交易就是要等待打折促销，是一个道理的。很多人在市场低迷时反而犹豫不决，错过好的交易，这是我们需要克服的人性弱点。我会去看巴菲特推荐的这本《聪明的投资者》，想要我分享读书心得的，可以在评论区告诉我。好了，这期视频的内容就到此为止了，我们下期再见，拜拜。